It's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check us out on other social media platforms such as Discord or Reddit. Links in the description. This week's episode, Indrid Cold. This is a really fun topic. I like this one. Another one of those good old West Virginia UFO/alien/WTF encounters.
Yeah, especially WTF. This one's kind of creepy in some of these accounts that you hear about Indrid Cold. It's creepy as hell. My imagination gets away from me sometimes, and like just imagine if you were like say for instance on a dark road somewhere, and you got approached by a smiling man like this, like what the hell? Like anybody, if anybody was just to walk up to me just smiling as hard as some of these stories tell, like it's just like, what the hell's wrong with you, dude? That would creep me out alone. Just that alone.
There's a I think it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode with smiling men, and they float around and steal your voices. I swear to God, in the 90s, I was so creeped out. They just have these huge grins on their faces, and they never change.
Mm-hmm. All right. Before we get into it, let's say hi to our live audience. It was, a little on the small side this week, but we got Dawn Cervix, the Wharf and Cringe Lord, live here on Reddit. If you weren't aware before, we do our live shows on Reddit every week.
Discord.
Discord. That's right. Whoops.
I was kind of confused there too. I was like, huh?
Yeah, maybe I'll edit that out, because, whatever. Maybe I'll leave it in because it's funny. Anyways, on Discord.
Yeah, just leave
live on Discord. Every week we do our show live on Discord, usually Friday nights, but we may have a schedule change coming up here pretty soon. We'll see.
Yes, because I got a new job.
No, because ETA is changing shifts.
Oh, and I got a new job.
And
it all works out.
Yeah, so we will keep you guys updated, and we may eventually do something else like Twitch or YouTube live once we get video going. I do want to do a video show at some point because, hey, I got a face made for radio, but we've had requests to do a live video show. So, hey, that's your guys' loss, whatever. But
yeah, I ain't so bad looking myself.
I look all right if I put a mask on. But no, before we get started on that, Agent Ether requested that I tell a story that I told last time.
But we were on mute.
Yeah, so here's what happened. We were waiting for the show to start. We were waiting for something. I forget what we were waiting for.
Agents.
Yeah, we're agents to show up.
Yeah, probably ETA.
And so I had a little bit of time to kill, a couple of minutes. So I told the story of the theme song that we use. And it turns out that actually, for whatever reason, there's some problem with the drivers on my computer. So the live audience couldn't hear me anyways.
We were just chatting and yammering.
Yeah. So
nobody could hear us.
Nobody heard. It's kind of funny. But anyways, the story of the theme song that we use, it's a song called The Surfer from Mars that I actually wrote and performed myself for a video game that never got published. So there was an amateur video game programmer that I kind of hooked up with online who wanted to make sort of like a fan version of a game called Partis. Partis is this browser game that's, how would you describe it, Agent Ether?
Fun.
Okay.
No, that's very helpful.
It's sort of like a top-down game. It doesn't refresh. Every time you click, the game refreshes. So it's like this really old school feel to it. And it's like a space combat type game.
It was pretty cool about 10 years ago. I think it's probably lost its appeal by now because of how much computers and the gaming environment have changed by now.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's still a fun game, and I haven't played it in years and years. I don't even know if my count is still there, but it has definitely this sort of, I don't know, this low budget appeal. There's a lot of these games that people have just programmed in their garage, essentially, and they are really fun games, even though they don't have the budget to do like high graphics and stuff. But anyways, one of the fans of that game wanted to make sort of like a side scroller shooter game or something. And I think he was too ambitious, and it ended up being a lot harder to make a game than he thought. So I did a couple of sound effects for him, and I made this music cue. He wanted something spacey, and that was his only thing. I was like, okay, what does that mean, spacey? Because that could mean two different things to different people. So I always thought, surf guitar was a good match for like a space theme, and for like a shooter, like a spaceship going through like a side-scrolling shooter. It's got like a nice beat to it. I think it'd be a really good match for a space game. So I pitched him the idea of doing a surf guitar song, and he's like, yeah, this sounds good. Let's do it. So I made about a 1 minute loop of just a simple surf guitar song. And it was actually a lot of fun to write that because I wasn't super familiar with the genre. So I had to do a lot of listening and sort of research to sort of figure out how to write a surf guitar piece. And I wrote a 1 minute loop, and the game never went anywhere after that. So it was pretty much dead in the water. So I had this piece of music. I was like, I don't know what to do with it, whatever. So at one point I made a visualization for it on YouTube, and you could see that if you're ever bored and you want to look that up. Maybe I'll post it in the Discord.
Stick a link in for this episode too.
Yeah.
So people can click on it and check it out, because it's a pretty cool visualization. You go on and graphically you can see what's going on. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun, but I'm not a visual artist at all, and I don't know what I'm doing with video editing. So the video is maybe a little rough around the edges, but it was still a lot of fun to make. But the piece itself is in the key of B minor, and the reason for that is because we went one time to a place in Covina called the Fret House. It's a guitar store, but in the basement they have performances a couple times, a month or a week, depending on whatever, however they can schedule it. And they got some pretty big names were there. It's, when we used to live there in Southern California, they get some pretty big names there. And one time we went to see Andrew York, who's like a modern composer. And probably the more famous thing he's associated with would be the LA Guitar Quartet. They do like, classical guitar music. But I really like his compositions. So we went to see him, and he played this piece that was in the key of B minor, and he made some sort of offhand joke about there not being enough guitar pieces in the key of B minor. So when I wrote this piece, I said, you know what, we need to remedy this situation. A lot of surf guitar is in a minor key. So I just said, okay, let's do it in B minor. Why the hell not? You got to choose something. And that's pretty much the story behind the surf guitar piece that is the theme song.
I just think it's a really fun song to have at the beginning, and now we can associate it with the show.
Yeah, it was really fun. I wanted to do something with like maybe theremins or something, maybe like a 50s sci-fi kind of a theme, but it takes, it's kind of a significant amount of work to write and perform that stuff. So I just haven't had time to get around to it. And then at some point, Ether's like, well, just use this other thing that you already have lying around that you're not doing it with. And I said, all right, sure, let's do it. Why not? It's fun, good fun guitar piece. So
there it is.
That's the story behind the theme song. All right.
That everyone missed last time.
Yeah, that I missed because it was on mute. So I retold it again. All right, let's get to the show. Okay, so this week we're doing the Smiling Man, or Indrid Cold. This one was requested on Discord by Degenitron, which is such a fun username. I love that, Degenitron. So thanks for the suggestions. And so anybody listening, we always appreciate suggested topics, because I have a list of stuff a mile long that we need to do, but if somebody requests a specific topic, then I'll prioritize that, because if somebody specifically wants to hear it, then why not do it, right? I mean, we're doing this for you guys anyway. So if you guys want to hear something, let us know, and we will definitely put that on the list. And I try to balance the list of topics. I try to mix it up a little bit. So I don't want to do too many cryptids or UFOs or whatever in a row. I try to mix it up as much as I can. So if you request something and we just did a topic similar to that, it may be a month or two until we get to it. And if we have a lot of requests, it may be longer than that. But if I tell you that it's on the list, then it's on the list, and we're going to get to it sooner or later.
Yeah.
And
we would rather cover topics that people want to hear, as opposed to what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like you said, that's the reason why we're doing this anyways. Also, not, you know, is part of having fun doing this as well.
Yeah.
Is, you know, you get more interaction with the listeners as well when they're hearing something that they want to hear, you know?
Yeah, and there are topics that haven't been requested by listeners that I really want to do. Like, for example, I think next week I want to do just talking about just sort of like a power hour casual format, talking about, is there life out there in the universe? And then we can talk about stuff like the Drake equation or the Fermi paradox. We can talk about, you know, the great strides we've made with observing and identifying exoplanets and you know, whatever. Or we talk about the fossils on Mars or whatever, you know, the bacteria that they suspect is in the clouds of Venus or whatever. There's so many topics we could do that we're going to have to be careful not to spend too much time on any one of them. But I thought that'd be like a really fun show to do, and nobody requested that. So, you know, whoever requested stuff is getting bumped a week because I really want to do that topic. But other than that, we generally prioritize requests. All right.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So in general, this is like a guy that smiles. Indrid Cold or the smiling man. Short episode this week. He's just a guy that, okay, so he walks up to people or people walk up and he's standing there and then he smiles and then people get creeped out and they leave and that's it, right? End of story?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's the end. Hey, thanks guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. But he's often seen along with UFO sightings in the area, and in one specific case, he was seen getting out of a UFO, and we'll talk about that definitely in just a moment. So a lot of people sort of connect this with like the Men in Black, and there's sort of some connection there, but I couldn't really find a specific connection. And so the Men in Black is a thing that apparently, like I've looked into it briefly before, and there does seem to be some evidence that people were sort of harassed by these characters that would come in pairs of two wearing these suits. And it could be just, you know, military people telling them to not, you know, hey, don't talk about your UFO sightings or whatever. I don't know that much about it, but I definitely want to do an episode on it in the future. But
was this phrase before the movie? Was the movie inspired by this phrase?
I think the movie was inspired by it.
The movie was based on a comic book that was inspired by the Men in Black it's an old thing. It's not a new thing.
Okay.
So but when I say that there are witnesses who have had these encounters, that's for real. There do seem to be witnesses who are legitimate witnesses who did have these experiences where they would report a UFO sighting and then they would be visited by two people or sometimes just one person who would I'm generalizing here, but they would say, knock it off, don't talk about this, or we will, you know, do something to you or
Eat
something.
Your children.
It varies based on the story. Yeah, children. Yeah, and there's a lot of these stories. Let's not get into it because it's a whole other episode. But I was not able to find a specific connection between Indrid Cold and the Men in Black. But I mean, maybe there's one that I missed, or maybe it's just people think that he's related somehow because of reasons.
He is a man in black.
No, he was a man in green or blue sparkly suits.
With slicked back hair. It's the slicked back hair.
Or no hair at all.
Or no hair at all, that's true.
Depending on what you're talking about.
The guy wasn't even wearing sunglasses. I mean, how are you supposed to like reset somebody's memory? You know what I mean?
I know. There's no neuralizers there. But okay, so we're talking about stuff that generally speaking in 1966. And 1966 was just absolutely bananas for UFO sightings. You go look at newspapers, you go look at the Blue Book files. It was just all over the place, all the time. It seems like pretty much every day there was a major sighting. It was a crazy year.
A hotbed of activity.
Yeah, really, really hot. And we've done a couple of episodes from that took place in 1966, such as the very first episode of the show, which was the swamp gas sightings, which is a really fun one. Maybe we'll revisit it at some point so the other agents can sort of, you know, give their opinion on it. I don't know, but that's one of my favorite cases. I love that case. And the Portage County case, and it was in April of 66, and that's the one where the cops were chasing this object. And I think that one was just me and ETA, I believe. But that case was the inspiration for some of the events in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And also a really fascinating case. So there's a couple of highlights for you, but what we're talking about, the first sighting of Indrid Cold was more or less on October 11th, 1966. And what happened here was that a UFO was seen near a DuPont explosives factory near Pompton Lakes, about 40 miles north of Elizabeth, New Jersey, by a police officer and his wife. Now, this may or may not be connected to the Indrid Cold sighting that follows, but I'm just mentioning it because some people think that it is, because it was on around the same time. So people think that this may be the UFO that the grinning man arrived in. So the witnesses saw a blazing white light as big as a car that nearly hit a 600-foot tall TV tower and then vanished over nearby hills. On the other side of the hills, officers Edward Wester and Benjamin Thompson of the Wanakee Reservoir Police saw the object, and it flew over the reservoir at a slow speed and a low altitude. Sergeant Thompson said the light was brilliantly white. It lit up the whole area for about 300 yards. In fact, it blinded me when I got out of the patrol car to look at it, and I couldn't see for about 20 minutes afterwards. And these are like my favorite kind of sightings, where you have multiple independent witnesses. You have somebody reporting it on one side of the hills, and then you have other people on the other side that may or may not, they don't even know the people, and they're in a different physical location, and they're basically reporting the same thing at the same time. So, you could say that somehow maybe these are two different glowing orbs because they didn't have continuous visual sighting of it. But on the other hand, it looks like they saw the same thing from two different vantage points. And that's, I haven't heard of this particular case before looking into Indrid Cold, and I kind of want to find out more about it, but I just didn't have time to research this specific case. But that happened at the same time as the first sighting in Elizabeth, New Jersey at about 9:45 p.m. Two boys named Martin and Jimmy were walking home on a road adjacent to the New Jersey Turnpike. And I guess a turnpike, that's like a freeway, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, basically a freeway. So it's elevated above them about 30 feet. So just picture that, at nighttime, they're walking alongside the freeway, but it's elevated. I think that's pretty common. Like, you've seen that in a lot of places. Wherever you live, they probably have an elevated freeway. So the side of the freeway hill was steep, and there was a tall wire fence at the bottom of the hill that ran along the road that the two boys were on. And it was dark. Only some areas of the road were lit by streetlights. Jimmy saw someone standing in the brush on the other side of the fence at the bottom of the hill, and it was behind his friend. So I guess they were walking side by side, and it was on the other side of his friend. The man was ignoring the boys and staring at a house across the street. He told his friend Martin to turn around and look at the man because he was startled. The man was big and wore a metallic green one-piece suit or coveralls. Martin later told the police, "Jimmy nudged me and said, 'Who's that guy standing behind you?' I looked around and there he was, behind the fence, just standing there. He pivoted around and looked right at us. Then he grinned a big old grin." They later gave a full description, saying that the man was over 6 feet tall and was dressed in a sparkling green coverall costume that shimmered and seemed to reflect the street lights. There was a wide black belt around his waist, and he had a very dark complexion, little round eyes that were really beady and set far apart, and that they didn't see any hair, eyes, or nose. So I like that description, like beady eyes. That's very specific and sort of makes me think
also the fact that they were set far apart too.
Yeah,
like that's kind of creepy in itself. Like just that depiction,
Yeah, beady eyes to me implies like sort of something sort of non-human,
Yeah,
like beady eyes makes me think of something from a movie, not like an actual person that I've met. Now I might
or like a cartoon or something.
I might tell somebody that they have beady eyes if I'm messing with them, but I've never met anybody that actually seemed like they had beady eyes,
Mm-hmm.
And he had no hair and no eyes or nose or ears it just, it sounds like Voldemort.
Yeah, it actually does. Yeah.
This wasn't an alien. It was just Voldemort going on his nightly walk, not a big deal. Because here's the thing. If you're not a wizard, you're probably safe from Voldemort-ish, safe-ish. I mean, he's probably not going to kill you specifically. He has no reason to.
He kills muggles.
Yeah, but he doesn't specifically target them. It's more collateral, if I remember.
Yeah, that's true.
Or if there's a muggle, like a police officer that's trying to catch him, he might kill them. But if you're just a couple boys walking down the street, he'd probably just ignore you.
May I ask, what is a muggle?
Oh, a muggle is a non-wizard.
Oh, really? So they're shitting on people then?
Yeah, the wizarding world does have derogatory terms for non-wizards, and that would be muggles.
Oh, I don't want to be a muggle. That doesn't sound enjoyable at all.
I know. I mean, who wants to be
I know I am a muggle.
Who wants to be a stupid muggle? Well, I don't know. You might be a wizard. You just haven't gotten your wand yet. You have to.
Oh.
You have to. Have you found your magic wand, HNETA?
I think I have. But
well, you might be a wizard.
I thought it was a magic wand. There is a woman or two that said it was magic. I thought, like,
now everybody listening to this will never read those stories the same. You know, the next time you're reading Harry Potter, what's Hermione doing with Harry's wand? She shouldn't be playing with that.
Stop it.
All right. So, anyways, the boys they saw this guy and then they ran as fast as they could to get away from him. Some stories or some versions of this tale say that the man actually chased him, but when you look at the boys' statements, I never saw that in the boys' statements. I think that was sort of implied. Some newspaper articles sort of inferred that the guy chased him, but I never found the boys actually said that. They just sort of ran away in a state of panic to get away from the man, and I don't think he actually chased him. He was on the other side of the fence, and I get the impression it was a fairly tall fence. So I think that they just ran from him in a panic, and it was dark out and they don't know whether or not he followed them. So they were later on, so they went home and they told their parents, and you know that they reported it to the police or whatever. And they were later interviewed separately by investigators, and their stories matched, which is sort of an interesting detail because if they were making it up, then there would be details of the story that would not line up. So that tells me that whatever they saw, they believe they had a genuine experience. Now, what that was it Voldemort? Was it an alien? Was it some weirdo who just put on a Halloween costume and just hung out on the side of the road? Or maybe it was like an extra from a movie that was being filmed nearby, or who knows? But that doesn't necessarily tell you what this guy was, but it tells you that these boys had a genuine experience at the very least. Maybe. I don't know. It's possible that they corroborated and they got their details straight. That's always possible that they could have fabricated it. I'm definitely not ruling that out. I'm just saying.
Do you know how old they were?
I'm just saying it's interesting. I did find their ages, but I don't think I put that on my notes, unfortunately.
I almost feel like the younger they are, the more I believe them. Because it's really hard for younger kids to get their stories straight, whereas if they're older, like if they're teenagers.
Yeah. Well, I hope they weren't too young, because
right.
Two boys walking home alone at night in, New Jersey. Do they got like stuff like the Jersey Devil there and stuff? Like that you don't want to mess around with that,
Hell no.
Yeah.
Back in the olden days when kids even went outside.
One of the people who interviewed the boys was a TV star named Chuck McCann, who was apparently a paranormal enthusiast, and he would go and check stuff out. He would investigate stuff, I suppose, which is sort of a strange twist to the case. But the reason I mention this is because Chuck McCann was 6'2", and he was, you go look up pictures of him, but he's, he looks like a fairly large dude, fairly broad shouldered and that kind of stuff. He's not a little dude. The boys said that the man they saw was much taller and wider than McCann. And you might interpret that as the boys being in a state of panic, or if they're startled or scared, maybe in their heads, the man was larger than they interpreted him as being larger than he really was. Or if they're saying at face value that he was actually bigger than McCann, how much bigger? Was he like 6'6", 7 feet tall? Was how much wider? Are we talking about like a Hagrid type figure here? Or, who knows? We don't know for sure, because the boys are, they're much shorter than 6 foot tall or 6'2". And when there's a great height disparity in either direction, like if anybody's more than a foot taller or shorter than you, I think it becomes so somewhat difficult to estimate their heights, especially when they're taller than you. But it's still sort of an interesting detail. Investigators later went to the scene and determined, based on the terrain, that they thought it was very unlikely that it was like a stranded motorist that had come to the bottom of the hill, because the incline of the hill was so steep. They found it unlikely they would come down there for help. They thought it more likely they would just stay at the top on the freeway and look for help up there. And if it was a motorist who had come down, they would ask for help rather than just sort of standing there and grinning at children, you know?
One would hope.
They would be like, "Oh, excuse me, could you help us? We're stranded. Our car broke down," you know? But who knows? Maybe it was somebody who was like incredibly drunk or high or something. And then they saw the boys and they're so happy to see somebody, and then they couldn't get a word out, you know?
Maybe it kind of sounds like it could have been LSD or something. Like maybe they're like the guy's face was just stuck on stupid.
It was
like,
the 60s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Anything's it's possible.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just creepy. Like I said before, like if somebody is going to like give you that wide of a smile and like keep it and hold it and like continue to stare at you, that's creepy, man. It's not
the
normal.
Joker.
You know, so yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually that kind of some of the depictions that I saw online, because there's actually like artists that have like drawn this character from descriptions of the sightings and stuff. And that's kind of the impression that I got was like, yeah, it's kind of the guy kind of looks like a Joker, like from Batman, you know?
Yeah,
like
a little bit.
The typical stereotypical Joker figure. A little bit. It kind of reminds you of that, you know, but it's still super damn creepy, man. Like, you'd be like, I might have to kill this guy. I don't know. Or maybe I should just keep on going. You know?
Why are you smiling at me, buddy? And you just look and go, friend. Friend?
Yeah. Friend.
Right. Since you brought it up, I feel like we have to say it without explanation, because I don't want to get too much of a tangent, but who is your favorite Joker? All right, 3, 2, 1. Agent Ether, go.
What?
Your favorite Joker?
I don't know. I don't watch the Batman movies.
Oh, movies, TV shows, or whatever.
ETA. Mark Hamill.
I have no idea.
Mark Hamill. Okay, yeah, that's okay. Fair enough.
Mark Hamill. That's
my favorite. Yeah, and the Batman cartoons, like in the 90s.
I did like the cartoon. Those were pretty dark, actually, for a kid's cartoon. Some of the episodes.
Yeah.
Well, they follow the Batman series like pretty closely. I mean, I think that cartoon was pretty well done as far as like.
It's actually surprising just how many voice acting credits Mark Hamill has, and he's a really talented voice actor. And I'm sure there's a story behind why he didn't want to go into more acting and did voice acting. But just for example, one of my favorite video games ever called Full Throttle, he's a voice actor on that game.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't he in? You remember that one? What was it? He was in Wing Commander.
Yes, he was.
I think it was like Wing Commander 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
One of those. I remember playing that game and like being like, it was cool. It was really cool.
All right. So my favorite Joker is Jack Nicholson. Gotta go with a good old classic.
Yes.
So that's my choice. But anyways,
oh hell yeah.
Let's not get too far into our tangents there. I could talk, that stuff all night, debate about what the best Batman movie is. It's obviously the Tim Burton's Batman. Yeah, I guess it just depends like what style you like. Like if I had to choose a second place, it would be Cesar Romero for the old TV show. I guess I like the more, colorful and zany style of Batman versions. I don't like the dark.
I think my favorite Batman.
I don't like the dark
Adam West.
Moody.
Yeah, I don't like the dark and moody one as much as I like the comic booky kind of bright colors and all that stuff. It's personal taste. I guess there's no wrong or right answer. But yeah, all right. Let's get back to the show. a little bit of a
we'll get back again.
Unexpected Batman tangent there.
A little bit of editing going to go on later.
I may or may not cut some of that. We'll see.
Bro.
Poor Agent Anderson. So much editing. So
actually,
little time.
Believe it or not, it's I really do enjoy editing. It's a strange thing. It's probably tedious to a lot of people, but I actually really enjoy the work. It's just a matter of sometimes I don't really have that much time to do it. So I have to cut some corners because it's like, it takes a lot of time sometimes. But anyways, let's get back to the show.
Let's go.
So on November 2nd, 1966 was another sighting. And this one coincided with the Mothman events. And what was the author of the Mothman prophecies? Oh, I should have wrote them. I should have wrote it down. Hold on. I do have the Google. John Keel, that's his name. I can't believe I forgot that. John Keel. All right. Sorry. I can't believe I didn't put that in my notes either. So anyways, John Keel was one of the head people that went and investigated this, the Indrid Cold case. But he also is the person who investigated and wrote a lot about the Mothman. So anyways, long story short, that I'll probably edit out, on November 2nd in 1966 was another sighting that coincided with the Mothman events that we did a previous episode on. And if you're curious about cryptids with fantastic glutes, then go ahead and check that one out.
Nice ass.
Oh, yeah.
Mothman was built in all the right places.
They even have a statue. So, yeah, you know what, dude? That's how you know this cryptid had it going on. Had it going on because they don't make a statue out of just anybody. You know what I mean?
No. Why would you? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what is going on over there?
What the hell is that, dude?
I think our dog got into the liquor. What the hell?
Oh my God. He's running. Look what he did to my mic. I don't even know.
Does he got the zoomies?
He does.
Oh boy, does he?
Does that look okay?
No, it's not. It's pointed at your ear. All right, where were we? My goodness,
I don't even know.
I don't even know. All right, well, anyways, let's get back to the
What
November
we're talking
2nd.
about was the episode?
Yeah, I know, right? Jeez, this is yeah, wow. All right. A lot of diversions on this one. So on November 2nd, 1966, we had another sighting that coincided with the Mothman events. This happened in Parkersburg, West Virginia. And this Indrid Cold is generally associated with the West Virginia stuff, even though the first sighting was actually not in West Virginia, but it's still it's in the ballpark. It's in the area, you know?
Yeah, it's not far away at all.
Yeah. So a fella named Woodrow Derenberger was driving on Interstate 77 and he heard a noise and he saw a UFO following the car behind him. That car passed his truck, and as it did, he saw a long dark object following it. The object cut in front of his car. So the car following behind him passed his car and cut in front of him. And the UFO was also following, making time with that car and also followed that car and cut in front of him. It was a charcoal gray object and it looked like an old-fashioned kerosene lamp, chimney, or globe. And that's like, if you can picture like a lamp, the glass thing that goes over the flame, that's what they're talking about. It's got like that kind of bulb shape at the bottom and then it gets smaller towards the top.
I used to have one of those, but it was electric.
But it still had like that stylized look.
It had that style. I thought it was really cool.
So yeah, it was flared at both ends and it narrowed down to a small neck and then enlarged in a great bulge in the center. It had a flat bottom and a dome-shaped top. The object, yeah.
I got a great bulge in the center.
I thought I was waiting for you to say something when you said long dark.
I held
long,
back
dark,
as long as I could, man.
I'm
sorry.
Long dark object. I was reading long dark object. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But anyways, Agent Ether has given me the scissors.
I'm giving him the scissors.
Give me the scissors.
No, leave it in.
So, a great bulge in the center. It had a flat bottom and dome-shaped top. Oh yeah. Anyways, so the object didn't have any lights, and it hovered 10 inches above the ground. It stopped following the object it stopped following the car in front, and came to a stop and blocked the entire road. And Woodrow tried to kind of swerve around it, but he had to slam on his brakes to stop because it blocked everything. He couldn't get around it. It forced his truck to stop. The side of the UFO opened and a man got out, and then the door behind him closed. He walked over to the passenger side of the truck that was on the shoulder, because he stopped kind of on the shoulder of the road. And so he walked over to the passenger side of the truck and telepathically asked
He asked, "Do you know why I pulled you over, son?"
Yeah, right.
Well,
Yeah.
at first he didn't know it was telepathically until he noticed the guy's mouth wasn't moving.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And he asked him to roll down the window. And at this time, this is when, or somewhere around here, I don't know exactly, but the door of the UFO closed as he was walking over, and the UFO shot straight up into the air and hovered about 100 feet up in the air. He could hear while this was going on, Woodrow could hear a low fluttering sound from the UFO, and he described it similar to how a helicopter might sound idling on the ground. He said it wasn't exactly like that, but that was the closest thing he could think of. So the man that came up to the side of his car was grinning and had a dark tan. He described him as being approximately 6 feet tall, 35 to 40 years old, 185 pounds. He was wearing a shiny blue suit that was sort of metallic looking. And when he told Woodrow when he walked up, after he walked up, asked him to roll down the window, he telepathically told Woodrow that his name was Indrid Cold. Now, if you listen to interviews, this is an interesting point that actually Agent Ether brought up earlier, that if you listen to the interview, you can actually go listen to an interview of Woodrow. You can find that online.
You can find it on YouTube, and it's closed captions so that it makes it easier to understand. Because if you go online and you just listen to the video, it can be hard to interpret.
Yeah. The recording it's not that clear. There's a lot of noise in the recording, so it's hard to hear it. But in the recording of the interview, he says that he told him his name was Cold, just Cold. But and a lot of sources will cite it as Indrid Cold, and that's true. Like she mentioned that, I was like, well, actually, I don't know where the Indrid comes from. Actually,
I looked.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it comes from the book that he wrote, which I'll get to in a minute.
So if you know, send us an email and we will update it next episode.
Yeah, let us know. Do our research for us.
Yeah,
we're slacking. So Indrid said that he was there to learn more about the human race and he would return. He was from the planet Lanulos in the Ganymedes galaxy, and he told him, "Have no fear, we come from a country that is not nearly as powerful as yours. We mean you no harm." Which, if you're thinking about it, you're like, come on, dude, you got a spaceship. I'm looking at it. It's right there hovering above my truck. And you're telling me that you don't have as much power as us? Come on, dude. We got like piston-driven airplanes still running around at this point. I mean, they had jets in the 60s too, but my point is that I don't think this guy, you can believe him what he says at face value. I think he might have been telling a little bit of fibs here, you know. In this case, he was probably fibbing because, you know, who wouldn't be freaking out at this point? But Mr. Woodrow was probably crapping his pants, so he said, "Don't worry about it. We are far weaker than you. We don't have your jets and your P-51 Mustangs. Don't worry about it, bro. We mean you no harm." Clearly lying. Clearly the guy was full of crap. But on the other hand, he was just trying to pacify him. But is that a good thing? This is kind of like the thought loops I go in when I read about this stuff, is like, why would he say that? Okay, he wants to pacify you, but is that a good thing? Is that a peaceful thing? Or is he just trying to lull us into like a false sense of security so that they can get us later on? You know what I mean? Like, you never know. It could be like Mars attacks could be waiting to happen in like 5 minutes from now, and they just want us to be
Mars attacks. Knock, 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 knock.
Right? Yeah. So
I love that movie, dude.
that's got to be my favorite alien themed movie in general.
Yeah, it's at the top for sure.
Second place, I think, is as cheesy as a movie as it is. Independence Day is just so much fun. So much fun.
It is. It's super cheese, but like like you said, it's fun though. Like, you know, especially when like you have to pay off, like when what is that? I'm back. What is that? What is that guy?
Randy,
the actor, the
Randy
crazy
Quaid.
Randy Quaid.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Not Dennis Quaid. Randy Quaid.
Yeah, Randy Quaid.
I mean, the famed. Hey, the shitter's full.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Whatever the line was.
Yeah.
But that guy seems like, he seems like just as crazy in real life as any character he ever depicted.
Or like, I love it, like in Independence Day, how they hack the alien ship using like Windows software. Like it's so stupid, but it's just so much fun.
So wait a minute, you used Windows 98?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. No. This movie, I think this movie came out in 96, if I remember correctly. So it wasn't even 98.
Oh, did it? So
I think it was 95.
So it was Windows 95.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, so let's get back to Indrid Cold. Their conversation lasted about 5 or 10 minutes, and it was all completely telepathic. Indrid's creepy ear-to-ear grin never moved or changed the entire time. And as they were speaking, several cars passed. None of the cars seemed to slow down or notice the UFO overhead. And that kind of makes sense if it was nighttime and the UFO didn't have any lights on it. It'd be real easy to miss. And also, if there was somebody pulled over the side of the road and somebody was at the passenger side window talking to them, you probably wouldn't think twice about that. So, I could see how if Woodrow was having this very strange experience, he might think it was strange that nobody slowed down to look. But to a passerby driving by, I could see how that wouldn't seem at all unusual. They probably wouldn't even remember it when they got home. At the end of the conversation, Indrid said, "We will see you again," and then left. After the conversation was over, the UFO came back down, the door opened up, and Indrid got back in. And I guess Woodrow said that he saw like somebody's arm inside the UFO. So there was like another person in there, or maybe another grinning man. And it appeared that they were wearing the same suit or the same color suit that Indrid was wearing. So I don't know what to make of that. Maybe there was multiple people in the ship. I guess if the ship's going up and down, somebody had to be piloting it. I don't know.
The whole conversation was very interesting to me, though. And he kept saying we.
Right. Yeah. Not I, but
right,
we.
But we.
Which is kind of an interesting detail. Is it like the Borg? Are they, or is it sort of like, does he mean like, was he like royal, like the royal we? Was he the king of his species, or was he speaking on behalf of? I don't know. There's so many ways to interpret that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it means anything or not, but just a tiny little details that Woodrow was a salesman and a father of two. I don't know if that, maybe he was making the whole thing up to sell cars, or what kind of salesman was he? I didn't even look that up.
Sewing machines.
He sold sewing machines.
Sewing machines.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So maybe he did this whole thing to just sort of, drum up business. Who knows?
I just thought it was interesting. You could raise a family selling sewing machines in the 60s.
Well, that
right?
Isn't that crazy? But nowadays, you're working at, Starbucks and you're like, lucky to have a room
advertising
somewhere.
Wasn't the same thing back then as it is nowadays either. It wasn't as easy to reach people back then, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have the internet, you didn't have as much TV or nothing like that, so yeah, I mean, there was still a strong culture of salesmen going door to door.
All right. Well, anyways, holy crap. Let's get back to the show. Yeah. Agent Ether's giving me the scissors again. I definitay might cut some of that diversion.
No.
All right. Where in the heck was I? Oh yeah. Okay. So the next day, Derenberger, Woodrow there I think it was the next day, whatever. Anyways, he had a news conference or press conference to talk about his encounter, and the Air Force sent a man to the conference. And this is sort of interesting because the Air Force would always play this game like, we don't care about that stuff, but yeah, we're still going to kind of send somebody there to check it out. You know what I mean? So the conference went, it hit kind of like the public, and it went sort of like national at that point. And that's why we know about this. Otherwise, it would be like a little local story or local lore that we probably would never have heard of. And a little while later, I didn't check out the dates, but a little time after that, supposedly Derenberger met two more grinning men named Demo Hassan and Carl Ardo. His wife met them as well, and she felt that they were up to something evil. This encounter was probably made up to sell a book that Derenberger co-authored with Harold W. Hubbard. That's my theory. And because I saw that he wrote the book and that there was no original statement about these other two grinning men, I didn't bother to look into it that much, because I'm like, dude, this totally sounds made up to sell a book, but maybe I'm not giving him a fair shake. But I was running late and I was like, I don't really have time to look into that anyway. So, whatever, what are you going to do? But I don't know, man. Sometimes you read about this stuff and you're just like, your spidey sense starts tingling. You're like, this doesn't sound genuine to me,
Yep.
Like, I just so happened to two more. I met two more of them, and they had these completely strange names. You know, here's how I think it happened. So you had the first encounter, and the guy was like, dude, these kids ran away screaming like they were terrified. What? Because do you think it was a smile? And then his alien buddy's like, nah, these are things like smile. We put a lot of time and effort into researching that, and our intel team insists that smiles are friendly to them. It can't be the smile. All right, well, maybe it was the color of the suit. Yeah. Okay, so let's change it to blue. All right, it must have been the suit. They were afraid of green, right? Maybe it was the height too. Make him a little shorter. Maybe he's too tall. Like, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it can't be the smile. Yeah. All right, so there was actually a third sighting in Point Pleasant, home of the Mothman. Oh yeah, this one is a little different. This involves the Lilly family. They had a bunch of strange events going on around the time of the second sighting. They saw UFOs and had like poltergeist activity at their house. They saw strange lights in the sky every single night. And I couldn't find anything more specific than that, like 2 nights a week? I don't know. But they said, according to the accounts, that they saw strange lights in the sky every single night. A statement from Mrs. Lilly said, "We've seen all kinds of strange things. Blue lights, green ones, red ones, things that change color. Some have been so low that we thought we could see diamond-shaped windows in them, and none of them make any noise at all. But where we get to the grinning man is that one night the daughter, Linda, awoke and saw him standing over her, and here is what she had to say. It was a man, a big man, very broad. I couldn't see his face very well, but I could see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me. I screamed and hid under the covers. When I looked again, he was gone." So I guess they're like, okay, it wasn't the color of the suit. Maybe we need to go up to them when they're asleep and pick one of the little ones. Maybe or I don't know, whatever. But there have been a lot of other sightings of the grinning man over the years. For example, in December of 1978 in one of these foreign names that we're excellent at pronouncing. Torriglia, Italy, a small village in Italy. A night watchman named Pierre Zanfretta was on patrol when he was abducted by 3 large reptilian aliens that apparently had yellow eyes. But later on December 3rd, 1979, about a year later, he was at a gas station in Genoa. A man called out to him from the shadows. It was a tall man, and he had a bald, egg-shaped head, and he was dressed in a checkered suit that had a chest plate made of steel. The man had a huge ear-to-ear grin. And that's pretty much the sighting. The man psychically told Zanfretta to drive his car into a cloud that was suspiciously hanging out close to them. Zanfretta felt compelled to do so and felt as if he could not resist. His car was levitated and taken aboard a spaceship. The ship had reptilians aboard. There were also cylinders filled with blue liquid, one of which had a strange frog-shaped creature that was presumably dead. And that's pretty much the whole thing.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, there's been some sightings over the years of people saying that they've seen the grinning man. But we could go over more and more of them, but I feel like there's not a whole lot of credibility to some of these. You know what I mean? So I didn't, the further on in time we get, like once you get into like the 2000s and stuff, you're just like, wait a minute, that doesn't, I don't know, who knows?
Yeah, some of the stuff doesn't add up. Really.
Yeah,
it's just.
And I think it's possible that some of those early sightings in particular, I think it's possible that they did see something that frightened them. But on the other hand, like these stories are just so fantastic that it's hard for me to take them at face value. So at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like, well, it's a really interesting story, but I don't know what to believe. I mean, I don't want to say these people are lying, but on the other hand, it's like, I don't know, man, this seems really weird, There's actually, I looked at the Blue Book files. Not always, but I try to do that when I have time, because what I'm looking for are sightings or, people reporting similar things maybe in the previous month or in a different location on the same day or something like that, just to see if I can find something similar around the same time, same place kind of a thing. I found on November, there was a file that was just a 3-page file, and the title card, or the summary card on the front said that the conclusion was other insufficient data for evaluation. And there was just basically the cover card, and then the middle page is a handwritten page, and then the last page are newspaper clippings pertaining to this case. Now, unfortunately, the handwritten page is very hard to read, and I couldn't make out a lot of it. But it said a couple of things, such as, "We will follow through with investigation," indicating that maybe the military was interested in looking into it further. There's some other parts that said, for example, 1930 hours, see attachment number 3. But there's no attachment number 3 there's no attachments at all in the files. It's just the cover page, the handwritten page, and the newspaper clippings. So where did the attachments go? That means there's at least 2 other attachments besides 3. What are they? What's in them? I don't know. 0200 hours. There's some illegible stuff, and it says Naval Air Station. It was reported to him that redacted, and then something illegible, saw a UFO at 11 p.m. for about 2 hours. No follow-up has been made in this case. So is that somehow related? I don't know. What does that mean? Who knows, dude? And then October 16th, 1966 was another case that was, I don't think it's related, but it was like a really, really interesting case. So I just wanted to mention it just because it's so cool. And the cover card said that the conclusion was other insufficient data. The case was returning home at 7 p.m. south of New Madison on Route 121, and it happened 10 miles south of Greenville, Ohio. A witness saw a white crescent moon shape moving from the east to the west. The object changed from white to orange, and then the shape changed into a funnel shape, and then it changed from red to white. The shape changed again to a sphere shape and then to a saucer shape. While it was in the saucer shape, they saw 2 dark streaks appear on the left side of the object. And I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. So I just thought I'd mention it. I thought that was like a cool sighting, but there's not really much to it. That's pretty much all we have. We don't have a whole lot of data to go with that one, unfortunately. No multiple witnesses or any of that other good stuff. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much, that's it. That's Indrid Cold. That's the Smiling Man. You could go a little deeper into the case and look up more stuff and whatever, but that's pretty much in a nutshell what we have on him. And I don't know, what is it? Was it an alien disguise? Was it some kind of robot that they had designed for making contact with people?
Demon.
And they were trying to study us? Yeah, a demon. Were they, was it a guy in a Halloween costume trying to just, have a good time on acid? Or like, I don't know, like, it's such a strange case because some of the witnesses do seem genuine, but on the other hand, it's like, it's just so bizarre. You're like, I don't know if I believe this, but the witnesses seem genuine. It's such a weird case. It's one of those ones where it's hard for me to come to any sort of conclusion, but it's still quite a lot of fun to just sort of discuss and think about, could this be an alien race that had some kind of costume on? Because not all of the witnesses, but some of the witnesses, especially Woodrow, said that it looked exactly like a man. It looked just like a man with a very large grin. So could it be like an alien who made some kind of artificial robot or disguise to sort of make contact with us? It's fun to think about, but they did it in such a way that, they looked at our culture and said, okay, how could we contact them? Let's follow their car and then stop their car, I guess. But the way they did it was they thought they researched it and that's the way that we should make contact with them. But the way they did it ended up being completely fucking terrifying, because they didn't do it right. I don't know. It's fun to think about these things. So, who knows? Anything's possible. And I like to keep an open mind on these things, even if they seem completely bizarre, it's fun just to think about it. All right. Well, that's about all we got for you guys this week. Thanks for listening,